to approve.
Thank you. I guess I don't have an agenda with me.
I'll second. Here's the whole bit.
Lisa's taking notes already. Let's see, so the call the meeting order to get agenda approval. Steve made a motion.
Tom motioned, I seconded.
Thank you, Steve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any public input? Seeing no public input, we'll move on to the consent agenda. There again, approval for the consent agenda?
Well, I think there's only one thing on the consent agenda, so do you want me just to approve the consent agenda or the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, I move.
I'll second.
Steve, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now we're down to old business. Property sale update.
Yes. So I wanted to let you know that we did have a closing on the property that was located at 901 Charles. That was a long-term renter who had an interest in purchasing that property. I had asked title for a copy of the settlement statement yesterday, did not get it yet, so I don't know exactly where the numbers are. But as soon as we get that, we'll find that out. We're in the process of making sure that all of the utilities and everything are transferred to that property owner. So just want to let you know that that did occur. We got all the signatures, and it was Friday that that happened, so.
Did you get the check for it?
Pardon me?
Did you get the check for it?
No, I don't know where the check is yet. I haven't quite figured out what happened. You guys went over there, I think, and signed.
I think we said to give it to Jeff.
Yeah, they asked,
Okay.
where do we get a check? And I said, well, just give it to Jeff.
Okay, so,
Could be sitting on my desk.
could be. So it will show up along with the settlement statement, and then we'll give you a full update on the transaction with that property. But it is one less rental property that you have now, so.
That gives us some dollars then to purchase more.
Yes.
Any more on that property? If not, we move on to the transition.
So as of August 20th, it's been quite the whirlwind. Jeff did go to Bemidji and pick up boxes of stuff that he brought over to our office. So we're working on trying to find the most relevant and then figure out what we'll do with the rest of it after that. Alicia has been working through all of the tenant files and then working on drafting a letter to send out to the owner-occupied and down payment assistance recipients, as well as the MURL, to let them know where to direct their questions. We're also trying to get a telephone number back for the HRA. Right now, if someone looks up in the phone book or, searches online, there's no phone number listed for the HRA. So we want to get a phone number. We're looking to see if we can just add it to Paul Bunyan, who is our service provider at our office, and make sure that it's listed. So it's part of our account, but we can have it independently listed, so it's listed. Because that's one thing that I think has been lacking over the last couple years, is that if you look for the phone number, it's really difficult to find it. So we're working on that. We've been working through the financials. One of the ways that DW Jones, or the way that DW Jones manages the accounts, is to have each apartment building as a separate entity. So we've been going back and creating, since the beginning of each of the buildings coming online, the beginning balances. So we'll be able to have beginning balances for DW Jones that is reflective of the actual activity in each of the apartment buildings. So when we get their financials, they'll be more meaningful, because right now they have plug numbers, so we can't really tell on a apartment by apartment basis really where things are at. So we're working on that. I also have had conversation with the auditors regarding the 2023 audit. They have gotten to a point now where the audit itself is in the report has been drafted and it's in review. And they did provide me with a substantial list of audit adjusting entries that need to be made in order for the 2023 financial statements to be reflective of actual. So I'll be looking through those and making sure that the entries make sense and that they're accurate. So we'll have good numbers going into 2024. They also provided that because they have some suspicion that some of the errors that were occurring in 2023 have carried over into 2024. So they provided the audit so that we can actually look at those and not have to necessarily go through everything to find where those potential errors might be, that we can then more quickly resolve the financials for 2024. I'm hoping that we get our 23 done in time for them to be able to present us a report, and then we can reconcile the two and then have 2023 done. So that's the goal for that. And that's kind of where we're at with the transition so far. So, any questions?
No big hiccups or anything like that?
Well, there's been all kinds of interesting things. The property owner who just bought their house hadn't paid rent for 4 months, and so we had to figure out how to get him to pay rent before he closed on his property, or we wouldn't have had a way to get it. So, I mean, there's been all kinds of stuff that has happened, so it's just...
I know this isn't really HRA business, but just curious because you had talked about hiring staff. How is that coming?
We interviewed someone today that when I get back to the, or interviewed someone yesterday that when I get back to the office, I intend to offer a job to.
Okay.
I believe you know this person. Okay. So yes, very thrilled. We found someone and we'll get somebody on board as quickly as possible because we do need it.
That'll help all of us.
Yes, it will.
Thank you, Mary.
Transition update then, we'll move on to new business. Signature authority for the executive director.
So there's some things that come up that require a signature, so this gives us more flexibility. A perfect example would be once the board has approved the DW Jones contract, then it's something that I could sign. There is for being able to review bank statements and get some of those details, we do need signatures. It's customary, we've done that before, so it would be just authorizing that signature when it is appropriate for me to actually do that.
I guess a couple questions.
Sure.
One is treasurer with the bank statements. Kind of to have more eyes on everything. How am I going to get, review those things too?
So we, once we get all of these things signed, we can either sign you up for online access, so you can actually go on to the bank portals and review all of the statements. So that's one option. If you want something less techy than that, we can actually have a mechanism of getting the statements sent to you. So either one is appropriate.
I would probably prefer, to view only, not be able to make any changes, just to protect myself, but to view only, I wouldn't mind doing the online one.
Okay, sure.
Because I do that with my own.
Perfect. Yep, and so what we'll do, once we get the signature, I have all the signature cards. I think one of Stack is somewhere, and then I've got the Citizens, that's Northwoods, and this is Citizens. Once we get those filled out, then we can request that they send you login information, and then you'll be able to have access to all of the accounts online.
Okay, that sounds good. And the second question is, for signature authority for you, like the contract, everything like that, this is an oversight board that needs to come here first and then get your signatures. Is that how it's gonna be working out?
That's-
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the last meeting, you approved the contract with DW Jones pending the minor administrative adjustments that we talked about. So at this point in time, we've got those cleaned up. We need someone to sign the contract and send it on. So yes, it would still be oversight and approval by the board and signature by the director as,
Kind of like work like board resolutions, it comes here to get passed and then Jeff signs it.
Right, exactly.
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was kind of feeling too. I was trying to remember that instance, I was talking about what happened last year. The HRA board wasn't, how do I say this in a public meeting? Not happy with a realtor.
Right,
And,
yes.
and.
And a signature was made,
Yeah, it
and,
was suspended, and then I had to question why did the chair and HRDC sign on something when the board wasn't happy with that, so, and that's so, to have the clarification now today that we've got to approve it and then you can sign it.
yeah, and I have no, my signature is on the bank statements because we can't have access to some of the things that we need without that. But I have no intentions of signing checks. And I have no intentions of, and your bylaws don't allow for me to just sign things without approval. Everything has to be assigned or approved beforehand. And so that's just part of the process that we have to do.
so you do need the director employed or contracted to be able to execute the orders of the board. And that's what the signatory authority is for, is to execute the decisions of the board.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Steve? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Is the resolution for, yeah, there it is for. So the second resolution has to do with Alicia. She processes ACH payments. Assuming that that is the process that you want to continue to follow, we need to have her on the bank account so that she can do the two things that are listed in the resolution. Number one, transfer funds. That becomes necessary if there's a security deposit that's paid and we have to transfer it to the security deposit escrow account, or vice versa, we have to take it out to pay it. Again, we make that transfer, but the check process still comes through here. So we make the transfer, it shows, and then the checks are still initiated here, but then she has the ability to transfer those funds physically. And then the second instance is that most of the loan recipients and Merle properties pay ACH, and you have to go in and initiate those payments. She needs to be on the bank accounts in order to make that happen, or someone who's already on the bank accounts has to do that. So our expectation was that we would handle that. So in order to make those options necessary, we need the second resolution.
Okay, like I was saying, as long as treasurer, as long as I can go online, see what's happening, and also the same thing, like we got right here, any check signing needs to be done, then I would want to do that personally. Okay,
Yes, absolutely.
sounds fine.
Is that your motion?
Sure, I'll make it.
I'll second.
Thank you, Chair. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Alrighty. So are we down to 7B or 7C?
See.
7C, Cornerstone Apartments renovation.
You may or may not know that one of the apartments for Cornerstone was damaged beyond livability. So it had been taken offline, and Minnesota Housing, who does still have jurisdiction over that property, was very disappointed and has said that the HRA does need to get back into compliance and get that apartment repaired and back online. A damage claim was submitted because the bathroom toilet was plugged in such a way that there was a continuous leak underneath it, and it damaged the floor and then caused significant mold issues. So the insurance company did cover the bathroom part of that renovation. So we have a claim net of depreciation, net of deductibles of $82.96.28, which in conversations with Angie at DW Jones should cover the bathroom portion. There's still the rest of the apartment that is going to be the responsibility of the HRA. And they have ordered the materials and will be getting a quote that we'll be able to review and get that fixed. But I did want to let you know that there's a good share of it that will be covered by the insurance. So that's helpful.
And we were given a little bit of grace. I mean, I know they wanted everything rented out, but if you have an apartment that isn't livable, you're kind of stuck until that apartment's repaired.
One of the things too that once we sort of, the dust has settled, Cornerstone was it was built as a 8-unit building. And then when the office was taken out of that office space was converted into an apartment, so then it became a 9-unit property. 8 were only the ones that were covered under POTH. So if we wanted to sort of push back to Minnesota Housing a little bit, their funding never covered that 9th unit. It was all funded out of HRA. So the HRA did fund one of those units entirely. So if we start having some disagreements, we can go back to what they call the request for action, which repurpose the building a little bit. I think we have a little bit of leeway that if they start really saying, hey, we can say, yeah, well, it was only 8, not 9.
So technically we had 8 available?
Always, yes. Yeah, so that was that, right now, we do need to get it repaired, and so we just need to move forward with that. But if it's really a compliance thing, I think that we can have a little discussion if we need to with them about that we've always had 8 rented or available to rent, so.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's all for that. We'll go on to Regency.
Yes, great news. The city of Park Rapids was awarded the small cities. So in that request, we have about $100,000 that will be eligible for Regency. And then my suggestion is that we make a request to the county to use the 2024 SAHA money, which is the statewide affordable housing resources that come directly from revenue. It's about $101,000. At this point, it has not been allocated, but it's a required match for small cities. We do have to have a match, but that would provide us about $200,000 with which to make the improvements to Regency. There are, the biggest one that really has to get done is that that particular apartment building has decks, and the support frame or the support structures on the decks are not compliant anymore. So in order to continue to house people safely, those have to be repaired and replaced. So that's the big thing that we have to do. Some of the other things that would be nice to be thinking about is new windows, boiler system upgrades, potentially appliances, some flooring. So we can look at some of the things that we can do. At a minimum, I think that what we really need to do is replace the toilets with a lower flush model to help save water utilization at that property, and potentially looking at lower flow sink fixtures and some of those kinds of things so that we can make some energy efficient improvements. And then a lot of the appliances have been replaced I've been looking at the financials over the last few years, and a lot of the appliances have been replaced, and so I don't know that it really makes sense to go in there and replace all of them. I think it's more planned replacement, and some of the flooring and kitchens, I think that what we do is we create a timeline for replacement for some of those things, so that otherwise you end up with 15 apartments all being done at the same time, and you have the same issue in 10, 15 years, where I'd rather see 1 or 2 a year. If we can do that to transition, so that we're always doing 1 or 2 a year, and you're never with 15 apartments that are in really bad shape. So that's one of the things that I'd like to do as we're looking at how do we best utilize the 200,000, and then how do we plan for the future so that we're always turning something so that we keep them as fresh as possible. So
I know there was talk about the decks at Regency in the past, and the process was gonna be investigate to find out if they're grandfathered in by any means. Did we ever get an answer for that you're aware of?
and that's a big no.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so the building inspector for the city gave until the end of this year
Okay.
to get those replaced, so.
Okay. So obviously that's a priority.
Right.
So if we get that done, I guess I would like to see focusing on keeping the heat and the safety lighting priorities. So our heating system and everything that's in there, and all of our safety lighting that's associated with it, any safety issues that are identified, we should get those taken care of first. Then I think we can start looking at flooring, appliances, upgrading windows. I mean, if you're going to increase the efficiency of your heating system, you're more than likely lost heat in windows and doors and things like that. Those are the next things that should be kind of in the priority categories, I feel anyway.
And since it's part of the Small Cities program, we actually have to do a pretty significant bid process. So I think that over the next, it will take the city a couple months to get through what's called the environmental review. And thankfully, other than the decks, most of the rest of the stuff is internal work, and we have 20 months to do the work. So it's not something that we have to decide to do tomorrow, or, other than the decks, everything else can wait a little bit. And then we can go through kind of an inspection process and categorize what makes sense and what we have the resources for, and then move forward with good bids after that.
Do you think that this could be a laundry list of items that would be desired to be achieved, and then one big bid on all of it? Or would it be best to segment it and do, all right, appliances are gonna be bid as one separate issue, and then flooring or whatever is determined as the need?
It depends. Because they're not necessarily one particular contractor or one particular expertise. So you'd have to then likely bid for a general who would then sub all of that. So does
Their
that make sense?
responsibility. Yeah, it makes sense. I see that, yeah.
So if that makes sense, then that's the way we can
Yeah,
go.
okay.
Otherwise,
good.
we can do separate bids for each of the components.
And then as funding becomes available.
Yeah.
And then, on Regency, the former HRA board, as I recall, okayed to repair the garages. Has there been anything down there, or?
I don't know. I did see in the minutes that you did authorize that. That is not an expense that's eligible under SCDP, so we wouldn't be able to use the small cities resources. I don't know if the work is done. It hasn't been evident that there's any fresh expenditures, but I haven't spent a lot of time looking at the financials yet to find out whether or not they actually did that.
I
So
have a
will-
feeling the work wasn't completed,
I don't think so
because
either.
we never saw bids or anything coming through to accomplish tasks, so
That's what I
I'm
was-
assuming it was kind of left,
Yeah.
so, okay.
You know,
Very
one of
good.
the questions is, do you wanna, does it make more sense to repair them? And, you know, I didn't see the bids, so, and I haven't been over there to look at the buildings, but does it make sense to repair them, or does it make sense to demolish them and do something different?
It's kind of one of those.
You know, it's 6 of one and half a dozen the other. I do know at one point there was chickens in one of them, so, well, yeah, so,
I know D.W. Jones had mentioned that they liked garages being available.
For
and
an
I-
additional
Yeah, for an
rental
additional, yeah.
fee.
And I also thought about how if they weren't all rented, if there was equipment and stuff that the HRA had and needed places to store them when they were there. I know that also the idea was kicked around, if we did demolish them, is there room to put some more housing there, you know, small apartments, or, I don't wanna throw tiny homes out there because I don't know how that would work.
yeah.
I don't know if the city would allow stuff like that.
Well, the city's minimum house size is 900 square foot, so it's bigger than probably what would fit in there. But that's not to say you couldn't design, you know, a couple twin home, you know, a long sort of something. I think that as we get through the transition, these are all really good discussions that we'll have, and one will be, hopefully we'll have luxury of more time for our meetings. We're a little pressed. But some of the things that I think that we really need to do is figure out what the activities for the organization are going to be. One of the things that is front of mind is getting that owner-occupied program off the ground and working on that. And then in conjunction with that, how do we really address the housing needs of those who are potentially less than market rate? And some of those options, and how do we best manage the properties that we already have? And I think that that's a discussion that we should have in context of the entire organization, not just Regency, but really talking or thinking more broadly about, you know, what the needs are and where they are. And, you know, frankly, does it make more sense to forego doing something of that scale in Park Rapids instead to do something in another community that really could benefit from 2 or 3 apartments or 2 or 3 units that they don't have access to now? So I think that those are some of the discussions that we'll start having as time goes on about what is the most appropriate things for us to think about focusing on over the next 12 to 18 months. Yeah.
Alrighty, from there then, if there's nothing else on Regency Repairs, we'll go to finance.
We have not received the D.W. Jones financials yet, so I cannot provide those unless, have you gotten them? No? Okay.
Mail them to us when you get them?
Yes, I will do that. And we will, you know, part of this is still, we're doing this transition and how are we gonna make all of this work? And we will craft our systems as time goes. So I would ask a little bit of leniency as we're sort of figuring out how best to serve your needs and make sure that you get everything that you want. But what we do have is a list of the checks that are for signature. There's one that I also brought over that we just got before I was on my way out the door, and it was for Nardini, which is the fire protection. And their invoice is due before your next meeting, so Alicia said if I get it you know, can you bring it over? And it's, I can't remember.
$3?
Yeah, it was like 44, the Nardini.
Yeah, Nardini got it for $33.
Okay, so, and that was to check all of the fire extinguishers at all of the rental properties is what that one was for. So that would be added to this list.
It's done once a year.
Yes.
I used to have to do that.
Yes.
Oh, sure, with the resort.
Yeah.
Do you get this?
Well, we'll have to have Jeff sign and then,
Oh, okay.
yep.
I'm reading over it right now.
So we'll need a motion for that, right?
Yes.
That's 8A then, approval and authorization of payments.
Yes.
Motion? Pay the bills?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second. Okay, go ahead.
The other point of business and clarification that we want to make is that there are some bills that we get that, especially in conjunction with the rental, single-family rental properties, that we get a penalty if we don't pay them. So is it your preference that we push the 35-day requirement and not pay anything until you've approved? Or are those sort of standard invoices okay if we go ahead and, for instance, have payments go out on the first and third, because this is the third week, so if we do payments on the first week and the third week of the month, Tom and Jeff would have to come in and do signatures, and then at the meeting, you would approve the already paid items and then whatever hasn't been paid. If you're comfortable with that process, it would be things like the electric bill, the energy, the natural gas bill, the city water. Those are the big ones that I can think of. That would be on that first week of the month, and then pretty much everything else should be able to wait until the third week of the month.
That's how the Kitts County Library Board does it. And maybe one thing added to it is that there's a check run list that's sent to the chair. So
Okay?
you can make me do that. So just another eye would look at it, but yeah,
Okay,
that seemed like to work to me.
all right.
And if something jumps out, you know, I can question it.
Yep.
Sure, absolutely. So, yeah, if that's all right with you, and again, we can, we'll try processes, and if they don't quite work, we'll tweak them until we get to a place where we're all comfortable. So, okay, we'll try that.
Mr. Chair, I don't believe we actually voted on payments invoices. We just had the first and second.
First and second, we didn't vote.
Alrighty.
She moved faster than you.
Sorry.
Further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you for catching that, Sharon. Okay, and then, so you mentioned about not having the DW Jones, so the final thing is the director's report?
And typically, this last month has been quite the whirlwind, and so typically what you would see is here a memo that would give you an update on what has happened between meetings. So I would write a memo to you that you could review before the meeting that would highlight things that don't necessarily warrant inclusion on the agenda, but that I want to keep you up in the loop on. Anything there we could discuss as a matter of, you know, if you had questions about something, but that's a practice that I've historically done, and most boards find it kind of comforting and informational. So that would be, that placeholder is that you'd get that report on a monthly basis as part of the agenda. So.
And then just a bit of housekeeping. Denise and Mary and Alicia and I are planning on meeting in between the HRA meetings to try to just facilitate the coordination and the administration of this. They're gonna get rights to write in iCompass, so these things don't have my name on them when you look at staff contact, and then she'll have the ability to write those reports in here directly. Alicia and Mary will put both in there. And then, related to DW Jones, it was our intention to invite them to the October meeting to come and give you an update on a couple of things. Hopefully, the coordination of getting the financials and making sure you have summaries of that. Also to either provide an update of condition assessment of the properties that they're managing on our behalf, and/or direct them to come up with that so that we can begin the idea of having a capital plan so we know how to take care of those properties. So some of you have met some of the DW Jones staff, but I think it's really important that they come in front of this group. And Mary's, I don't know if she's already reached out or was intending to reach out and invite them to the October meeting, but we're in the background spinning our wheels a lot, trying to get things up and running. That's why you see a bunch of items in here that have nothing behind them, because we were just placeholders to make sure that we talked about key points before we forgot.
Is there any other business that would like to be brought forward? If not, make a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
I have a question for Jeff and both of you.